The Query Designer is a very powerful tool to have at your disposal, and its layout makes it easy to find the answer to some very complex questions. The easiest way to begin exploring the Query Design environment is to take a look at an existing query and see how it was put together. We'll use the employee phone list query here that we created in the last movie. I'm going to right-click on it and open it in Design View. Now the Query Design environment is split into two sections. The upper half of the window is essentially a mini relationships map. It shows us the tables that are involved in building our query. We've got the employees table and the employees phone table. We can also see how they're related based off of the employee ID field here and here. The bottom half of the window describes all of the columns that go into creating our query. In this particular query, we have the first name column, the last name column, both of those coming from the employees table. We also have the number column and the type column coming from the employees phone table. Now we can rearrange this window a little bit. If I want to give more room to the top half, I'll click on this bar here and drag down. If I want to give more room to the bottom half, I'll click and drag up. So this is essentially what the Query Wizard built for us. Let's construct it on our own using a blank Query Design environment. I'll close this query out. I'm not going to save any changes to it. And I'll go to the Create tab and select Query Design. Access starts up the Query Design environment, and it gives us this Show Table window, just like when we built our relationships. From here, I can choose which tables I want to be involved in the query. I'll choose Employee Phone and press Add, and then choose Employees and press Add. Then I'll close the Show Table window. We can rearrange these tables however we'd like. I'm going to take Employee Phone and move it to the right, and then I'm going to open up the Employees table just a little bit. I'll move this window up to give me more room at the bottom. Now I just need to take the fields from our tables and move them down into the query grid. We're going to build our query using the first name and last name from our employees. Now I can click and drag first name and drop it into the first column. A shortcut way to do this is to just double click. I'll double click on last name to add it to the next column. Our third column is going to be the number from the employee phone table. I'll double click on that. And then we're going to add type. I'll double click again. At this point, this query is exactly the same as what the wizard built for us. We can check it out by running its datasheet here to see the results. And there we go. Let's go ahead and switch back into Design View. We can do a couple of additional things here in the Design View that the Query Wizard didn't allow us to do. For instance, under the Sort row here, we can choose to sort our results based off of, for instance, last name. I'll click and choose to sort ascending. I can also choose to show or hide particular fields. By default, it's going to show all the fields that you've added. But if for some reason you wanted to turn one off, for instance, you wanted to add it just to sort, but you don't need to necessarily see it, you can uncheck the Show checkbox, and that field will not display in the query's record set. I'll go ahead and turn this back on. We can also rearrange the columns once they've been put down. In order to select a column, there's this gray bar at the very top. When you hover your mouse over it, you'll get a downward pointing black arrow. Just click there to select it, and once it's selected, you can click and drag to move it to a different position. I'll click and drag last name and move it to the beginning of my query results. Each half of this screen also have their own set of independent scroll bars. Oftentimes, these scroll bars can accidentally get clicked, and it'll look like your fields became blank again. So make sure that your scroll bars are always to the left and top in the upper half of the window. Finally, let me point out a really important distinction between these two buttons in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, the View button and the Run button. For most of the queries that we're going to create, they're considered select queries. They simply pull records out of your data tables. And for those, it doesn't really matter which button you press. Viewing the datasheet and running that query are exactly the same. They both display the query's record set. I'll go ahead and switch back to Design View. The only time these two buttons differ is when we're looking at append queries, the Make Table query, the Update query, or the Delete query. These are all of the action queries, and you can see the same exclamation mark in their icon. When you run these query types, which we'll talk about in later movies, those actually make changes to your database. So when those queries are active, the View button and the Run button are very different. But like I said, for the select queries that we create, either one of these buttons will both display the records datasheet. We're going to continue working in the Query Design View throughout this chapter. There are a lot of options to explore and some really cool ways that we can organize our data, but they will all start with the same basic model. We will start with the tables to pull the information from up top, and then add the individual fields that will be combined into the final datasheet down below.